Americandy, a 2016 gelding. We don't have any fun doing these videos at all, clearly. So, Americandy, this 2016 gelding, also called Andy around the farm, he is really excited about grazing right now, so we'll let him go ahead and do that. But he just came pretty recently to the training barn. His last race was just on May 9th. You can tell he still has this, what we call a race fit body. So he is streamlined. He has all the essential muscles for racing and just about no body fat. So he's actively working on gaining that body fat, and he does a really nice job at it. The dapples, of course, are a reflection of really fantastic care and grooming, but also that internal fat reserves being met, and they're just blossoming on the outside. So as part of our process of the horses going from the track into retraining and then going into homes for when they're adopted, you can see generally that they go through a pretty massive physical change depending on how much time they're spending, but the whole process of letting down from the track involves their metabolism slowing down, their muscles getting used to doing different things, and so you'll probably see this guy is probably going to change physically just in him growing and him getting those new muscles and having a different diet and a different routine. So lots of changes here, but Americandy is a really great example of a horse who tends to thrive in our program and just go through and be able to be adopted in a quick way because he retired with no known injuries. So far so good with the work that he's done here and the groundwork. Haven't seen any issues come up, so we're hoping that he continues on that track. And like I mentioned, he's been doing groundwork. He'll start in under saddle work, and along the way we get to know the horses and their personality. Right now he's still going out in the round pen, so we'll start transitioning him into a turnout group. And when they have more turnout, they will lose some of this excess energy. Not that he's doing anything wrong, but he's still kind of like active minded, and he's wanting to like keep moving. And once they go out on longer turnouts, then they have a more docile mindset because they've already expended all the energy and are kind of like, they start to develop those cycles of the active times and then the resting times. So that's kind of where he's at now. If you guys have any questions, feel free to type them in the comments box and Dom will read them out. And if you're having questions after we're live, feel free to type them in the comments box anyway, and we'll circle back to them. But Americandy here is a really lovely member of our barn right now. He did have a good amount of experience in the track. He had 10 starts and he's 4 years old, so he's been there, done that. He's used to crowds, he's used to grooming, he's used to the environment, and he's settling in really nicely, like I said. So this is a guy you can expect hopefully to see becoming available in the next coming weeks, just depending on how he progresses through things. But we're really happy to have him in our barn and to be able to share him with you today. I'll bring you over here.
And how tall is Americandy?
He is around 15 or 16 hands. You can expect that he will probably grow and definitely fill out a little bit more just given his age. But already you can see he has a really nice build. He has a sportier physique, and we think that he could go on and do any number of disciplines. We haven't really pegged him down as one thing or another. We have some guys playing over there. You can tell, actually, this is something, Dom, let's go over there. I don't think Americandy cares, but something that comes up often in transitioning the horses, even beyond our program, but once they go to new homes, is I think people don't always understand how playful these horses are. Thoroughbreds are athletes. When we talk about transitioning them from the track, like these horses love to work, and they might not be of the mentality of a racehorse and competitive and fast, but they love to run, they love to play. the average age of the horse that we have in our program is 3 or 4 years old. So they're babies. They love playing. They're super social. They're super goofy. I mean, and sometimes you notice patterns like our geldings are ridiculously goofy. The mares sometimes, they're like, you're much more likely to find them in their run-in sheds when it's raining. The geldings will just be grazing out there anyway, probably playing what we call halter tag, where they grab each other's halters and kind of bite at each other's faces. And a lot of that is just, you know, youthful energy, but also just being goofy and being friendly. And, you know, some people will think that they're being rough with each other. It'll come in with little marks. You've probably seen them in some of our pictures. They bite at each other. And certainly sometimes horses just don't get along. But because we have such a quantity of horses coming into our program, so when we have all these horses adopted, you know, the horses leave and another horse fills its stall. So we're constantly reorganizing our turnout groups based on the personalities and the different horses coming in. Like with people, you have horses who just don't get along with each other, and you have to understand and be able to observe and take in the hierarchy that's established, and when you put a new horse in that group, how that's going to change things. So that's something that we are always acutely aware of. And so as a prospective adopter, it is really important that you help us understand what your current herd situation is like, so that we can try to figure out if this horse is going to fit. But it's impossible for us to actually know what's going to happen when you do that. And so you can sort of help them to transition. Like for us, we don't have a lot of holding pens. Like we have our round pens to help the horses get used to the environment, but we don't you know, like walk them through the fence line or introduce them across the fence. A lot of it is just kind of like letting them figure out where things are going to settle, and we keep an eye on new groups and sort of let them meet each other. But generally you give them 5 or 10 minutes, and if they get through that hump, then a lot of times they'll get along well with each other. But we're always adaptable if the horses don't get along. Anyway, where I'm going with this is it is really important when we're talking about horses' fit that we consider their turnout situations and just the innate personalities of these guys, because they're really athletic and they're really goofy. And if you have a horse who doesn't like to play, and these guys who maybe like to play and, you know, young and they want to do that, that's something that we have to consider a lot too. So when you see the horses running and playing and biting and doing all the goofy things that they do, a lot of that is really natural, especially for this age group. It's kind of like having a very physically active daycare. So, you know, just another thing to consider too. I always just, you know, we try to let you see our day-to-day operations, and that's just one of the things that it's sort of like I had thought of and thought that it might be worth talking about here. If people have questions about that, obviously you're welcome to ask. But it's just a different setup than saying like the boarding barns that you might be at. We have a constantly changing herd of horses, and so like I had mentioned, we become acutely aware of how a horse is going to fit in a herd, and being able to pick up on those signs when they're not, and how we can change that and how we can help them. But it is super important to remember, just like with AMERICANDY here, I'm not getting upset at him for being sort of active and wanting to move around. It's just that's part of this phase of life that we have these horses in, and part of this transition. So just one of those things, bringing it to the light and worth talking about, because that's going to be a huge component of how a horse works or doesn't work when we place them. And that's, we always want to make sure that we're setting horses up for success and setting adopters up for success rather than failure, and that just becomes such a huge part of it. Anyway, this is AMERICANDY. He is a 2016 gelding. He's very new into our training barn, but he's gorgeous. He's doing really well, and he is just progressing through the retraining as well as you could possibly hope. You can see he was totally unfazed by the horses when they were running around. And actually, Dom, if you pan to that turnout right now, what did he do? He's trying to scratch in between my legs. They're right now, they're just grazing and quiet, and that's all settled. But you know, a moment ago they were running around and chasing each other and playing. But this is what we like to see. We like to encourage them to be playful and encourage them to be youthful, because you want them to maintain that spirit and not quell that, certainly, but then resume a more placid mindset, ideally. They're just, you know, this is a good life for them. This is ideal. So this is what we want to try to replicate, where they're going to be successful after they leave here too. AMERICANDY, 2016 gelding, stands around 16 hands. He is a really, really good boy. And please join us again tomorrow at noon. We'll have more adoptable horses to show you. Thanks for joining.